member of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Tanzania. And since 2013, she is working as General Secretary of the Miro Diocese in Tanzania. Please join me in welcoming her, and I will hand her the chair. I will say habari.
Thank you very much. It is good to be able to speak in my language after all these years. So, nzuri, Mr. President. Good morning to all of you. What I didn't share with Honorable President is that I was fortunate to be a delegate in the 8th Assembly of LWF in Curitiba. And in our workshop, I was a presenter on this same theme. So it is really a humble and a privilege for me to be able to share this session. Our keynote addresser of this session is Martin Kopp, who is a former LWF youth delegate to the UN Climate Conference and former LWF Climate Justice Advocacy Officer. As such, he attended COP19, COP20, and COP21 in Paris. He is currently completing his PhD in Protestant theology at the University of Strasbourg, France, and is chairing the Climate Change Working Group of the French Protestant Federation. Martin Kopp is a member of the Union of Protestant Churches in Alsace, I'm not sure, Alsace, and in Lorraine in France. So in a moment, I will invite him to take the floor, but before he does that, let us hear what the Assembly is saying on this theme.
Creation, not for sale. Well, obviously, creation is for sale. It has been for sale for thousands of years.
We are surrounded by beautiful creation.
It's also sinful if we forget that creation is God's creation and not our creation.
Because we are not the owners.
There are hopeful signs, though. We are more and more realizing that we really are interdependent with creation. We are part of creation and not the rulers of creation.
When we look outside, when we look around in this service hall, we see trees, we see birds and animals.
In terms of creation, we are created co-creators. That means that we are utterly dependent on God. We are creatures.
In South America, and especially in Argentina, creation is not for sale. It's a good reminder for the people who are trying to develop mining, open sky mining, and also for the rivers, for the use of the rivers.
But we are also co-creators in the sense that God has endowed us with creative power that can sustain, that can build up, but that also can destroy.
We are also creations of God.
In our theologies, we have long been oriented towards humans. Now we are moving to theologies that are more creation-oriented. That's a good sign.
And the really good news, the really good news about the creation is not for sale is first that not all is for sale.
All good powers have to work together, and theology, Christians, people of faith, churches have a role to play in this context.
Now we take care of ourselves. Then why do we neglect everything else?
So these all are signs of hope, and we are realizing that together we can do something about it. Creation is not for sale.
Martin, the floor is yours.
Dear sisters and brothers in Christ, dear friends, bonjour. Merci. Yesterday, we commemorated the 500th Reformation anniversary. It was a beautiful liturgy and a powerful and sunny experience of communion. Did you know that in 2017, LWF is celebrating yet another anniversary? Indeed, this year, it's been 40 years since an assembly first spoke on the issue of care for creation. It happened on this beautiful continent of Africa, namely in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, in 1977. Since then, we have been working on our theology. We have been translating our faith into assemblies and councils' texts. We have done so within a broader ecumenical context. We have done so especially with the World Council of Churches, but also lately with the Roman Catholic Church following the publication of the encyclical Laudato Si. Looking back on our journey, my opinion is that our theological tree has produced its fruits. We agree that we confess God as creator of heaven and earth. We agree that all that exists shares the condition of the created. We agree that we, human beings, are creatures among other creatures, embedded in the living web of relationships. We agree that we, human beings, are, however, peculiar creatures, created in the image of God, free to do good or bad, standing in responsibility before God. We agree that God wants us to choose life and happiness. He wants us to be the good stewards of his good and beautiful creation. And we agree that taking care of creation is at heart a matter of justice and peace, of protecting the most vulnerable people, the poor, women, children and youth, elderly, indigenous communities, who all suffer most from the degradation of creation when they have often contributed to it the least. 40 years after Dar es Salaam, I believe that we have reached the point where our core care for creation ethics is mature. Today we face the question with utmost urgency, the question of the how. How can we initiate, deepen, strengthen actions to meet the ecological challenge? In that regard, today's sub-theme gets right to the point. Creation not for sale. The intuition behind this wording, and actually behind the wording of all of the Assembly's sub-themes, is that economics and the economy is nowadays the main driver of the world. Thus, it is economics and the economy that we need to challenge first and foremost. Together this morning, we will first take stock of nature's bill. Then, we will explore how the deeply flawed 20th century economic model can be replaced by a new economic paradigm, namely DOUGHNUT economics. Now, I reckon it might come as a surprise to you, and I do recognize that the metaphor of a sugary pastry may seem unfit at first. But please kindly bear with me, and you will see how it makes perfect sense. Finally, we will see how we can bake the donut, shaping the sustainable and just present and future that we envision. Some 50 years after Stockholm, the first Earth Summit, where do we stand regarding nature's bill? The ecological footprint indicator allows us to look at the very big picture. It gathers all of the resource consumptions and waste emissions of an individual, of a community, under a unit of surface, global hectares. It shows whether humanity's ecological impact outweighs the Earth's biocapacity. On this graph, the red line shows our footprint per human being since the 1960s. The green line shows the Earth's biocapacity per human being. it appears that since 1970, each and every year, we have been consuming more than what the planet provides. Today, our footprint is of 2.8 hectares, while the planet's capacity is of 1.7 per person. And even a theologian can do the math here that... I know. I'm studying theology myself, so I can say it. We are consuming worldwide 1.6 planets per year today. Naturally, a country's footprint depends on its level of development. On average, low-income countries consume today 0.6 planets. Low-middle-income countries, 0.8. High-middle-income countries, 1.9. And high-income countries, 3.6. As you can notice on this second graph, scientists do not project any improvement. According to a moderate business-as-usual scenario, the dynamic at play would lead us to a global ecological footprint of almost 3 planets by 2050. What we rather need to achieve, of course, is a decrease of this footprint back to 1 planet by the middle of the century. Zooming in and examining the Earth system as a delicate balance, scientists have identified 9 planetary boundaries that we should not cross in order not to drive the Earth system into a new and very dangerous state. These are biodiversity loss, climate change, pollution, stratospheric ozone depletion, atmospheric aerosol loading, ocean acidification, change of biochemical flows, and here it's mainly the phosphorus and nitrogen cycles, land use, and freshwater use. Biodiversity loss and climate change, here written in orange, are special boundaries because each one of them, by itself, if crossed, can lead the Earth system into a new state. Out of the 7 boundaries that science today can quantify, 4 have been crossed. This takes us out of the safe operating space for humanity. Climate change and land use, surrounded in yellow, have entered the increasing risk zone. Biodiversity loss and biochemical flows, nitrogen and phosphorus, have entered already the high-risk zone. Take good note, in particular, of the fact that the 2 boundaries that I have said are systemic have all been crossed. On the whole, data shows that we have entered a truly uncharted territory. Simply put, our societies and life on Earth are on the verge of collapse. I would say, this is my opinion, sisters and brothers, that this is the top challenge of the 21st century. And it's not only a matter of protecting little birds and flowers, important as it is. It is the top challenge of the 21st century because today we know that there is no human issue. Take poverty, take migration, take social justice, take peace, you name it. There is no human issue that does not rely on and depend from the fate of our ecosystems. This integral approach is today recognized at the highest level, first of which the UN. It's as simple as this: there is no human well-being on a dead planet. Economics is at the heart of the ecological predicament. We can be freed from the old endless growth model by the new doughnut economics. To that end, we first need to understand the failing of last century's model. The classic representation of the economy depicts a self-contained market. The famous circular flow diagram indeed shows a relationship between households and businesses. Households provide labor and capital, businesses pay wages and profit. Households consume goods and services which are sold by businesses. And at times, the circle is completed with banks, government, and trade. Throughout the 20th century, it has become universally admitted that the ultimate goal of economies is to exponentially grow the gross domestic product, or GDP. At the beginning, it was believed that growth was a means serving human advancement and happiness. In the meantime, however, growth and welfare have become so strongly identified with each other that the means has become the end itself. Endless growth has become the new good. Today, orthodox economists do not wonder whether growth is still necessary everywhere, whether it is always desirable, or whether there are natural limits to growth. They are looking for growth for its own sake. But not only economists are. The social and political spheres have been colonized by this vision, and one could argue that growth is the new Catholicity. The problem is that both this representation and this goal are deeply flawed. As a matter of fact, the circular flow diagram simply forgets that the economy is not soilless. It relies on nature and on society. When it comes now to the goal of growth, social sciences have shown that it generally does bring about an increase in human well-being, but only up to a certain level of GDP. Past this threshold, economic growth does not improve well-being anymore. It then depends on other factors. Albert Einstein rightly said that we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. Now, economists and politicians generally offer you more growth, the fairy dust supposed to make all the bad stuff disappear. Following Einstein, many think, au contraire, that we need a new vision for a new goal. Regarding our depiction of the economy, we shall replace the self-contained market by an embedded economy. In that picture, the economy made of households, the market, the state, and commons is embedded in society, itself embedded in the Earth system. The Earth gets its energy from the sun, an energy itself used by our societies together with living matter and materials to run our economies. At the other end of the economic pipe, waste matter and waste heat. This is the vision which is faithful to reality and science. It is proposed by Oxford University researcher Kate Raworth, to whom I recognize my debt. In addition to this vision, Kate Raworth proposes a new goal, the doughnut, and the time has come to nourish your curiosity, if you allow me to do a very French play on words. She considers that the 9 planetary boundaries constitute an ecological ceiling. Above the ceiling, we overshoot. Below the ceiling, we live sustainably. But this is only one part of the good life, because our societies are looking also for the fulfillment of key human demands and aspirations. That's why Raworth adds a social foundation constituted of 12 main social boundaries: energy, water, food, health, education, income and work, peace and justice, political choice, social equity, gender equality, housing, and networks. Below the foundation, we suffer social shortfalls. Above it, we can enjoy social well-being. You understand that it is the conjunction of both boundaries that delineates an area, as a matter of fact, shaped like a donut, that avoids both ecological degradation and social deprivation. In other words, the sweet spot of a safe and just space for humanity. Both these goals depend on each other, of course. And to give you but one example, a study has shown that environmental quality is higher where the income is more equally distributed, where people are more literate, and where civic and political rights are better respected. This is then the new goals of economics, meeting the needs of all within the means of the planet. Instead of pursuing economic growth, whether or not it makes us thrive, economies should make us thrive whether or not they grow. This could be a compass for the 21st century. And clearly we are not there. We've seen that 4 planetary boundaries have been crossed, a 5th one will be crossed very soon, and millions of people still live in the hole in the middle. We are transgressing both the ceiling and the foundation. So how do we get there? How do we bake the donut? How do we get to the safe and just space? There would be so much to say. Speaking about the energy transition, speaking about circular economy, zero waste trajectories, and so on. I have chosen to point out 3 elements. The first step is not technical, it is spiritual. There will be no outer economic and lifestyle evolutions without an inner conversion. In the New Testament, conversion literally means change of view. When it comes to creation not for sale, this change of view should occur in two places. On the one hand, it should occur in our minds. Converting means adopting the embedded economy representation, which fits science, but also fits our theology of creation. Indeed, we believe that we human beings live in solidarity with the rest of creation. It's been said in the video. We live in solidarity, and it further means adopting an integral ecology approach. Ecological and social advancements are not enemies to one another. They go hand in hand. On the other hand, conversion should occur in our hearts. Here it means mainly switching values. While obsolete economics values greed, which Paul calls an idolatry, we value satisfaction and simplicity. While it is fueled by the lure of wealth, which according to the parable of the sower, chokes the word so that it yields nothing, we are fueled by love and care. While it too often makes money an end in itself, we say that one cannot serve two masters, we cannot serve God and mammon. This conversion is carried out in our Christian spiritual life, nourished by the reading of scriptures and theology, rooted in prayer, vitalized by the sacraments, lived out in community, and empowered by our world communion. It is God Himself, it is the Holy Spirit that enables us not to despair and to let go, but rather to hope and to commit. Paul told us, it is not you who support the root, but the root that supports you. The next step is concrete transition, of course, and there's no denying this is a huge challenge. We have all begun to be the change we want for the world, and the LWF itself has been putting its words into actions for years now. But we must all do more. It's not enough. In our homes, businesses, offices, meeting rooms, churches, all places of living and decision-making, we should pin a donut economics diagram on the wall and wonder, is this habit of ours making us overshoot, or is it helping us get below the ecological ceiling? Is this choice going to aggravate social shortfalls, or is it going to help us get above the social foundation? Each and every area of life is concerned. Housing, transportation, food, clothing, or even leisure. I do not have the time to enter into these practical details. Also, they are very different from one context to another. But at the global level, I wish to distinguish three kinds of transition. I take the risk of oversimplifying a bit, but I consider there are three kinds of countries and then three kinds of challenges ahead of us. One, countries that have taken the vast majority of their members above the social foundation, but at the cost of a skyrocketing overshoot. Here the challenge is to decrease our footprint while preserving well-being. Two, countries that have taken some of their people above the foundation, but that have already passed slightly, but have passed the ecological ceiling. Here the challenge is to lift the rest of the population above the foundation while getting back to a sustainable footprint. Three, countries that have for now left the vast majority of their population below the social foundation and could actually increase their footprint. Here the challenge is to better everyone's condition without overshooting. And you can probably Youth delegates in the room, I have a special word for you and for the youth of your churches. If you are looking for a career, stop looking. Become a donut designer. Put your innovative and creative minds to work and help us imagine, create, and build donut agricultures, donut cities, donut transportations, and so on. Together, we can create economies that are not degenerative, but regenerative by design. Finally, as there is a structural limit to what a person or a community can do, we must commit in politics. At the personal level, your vote counts, of course, But you can also be a candidate if you have the chance to live in a democracy. At the church level, you can actively advocate decision makers like we did at COP21 with the Fast for the Climate campaign. In several parts of the world, we see that in the face of the turmoil of our time, people increasingly support politicians who pretend to put their nation first, instead of recognizing that our fates are interrelated, who designate scapegoats instead of discerning responsibilities, who promise to build walls instead of building bridges. I say with utmost seriousness that I fear that the unfolding of the ecological crisis in the years and decades to come will make this kind of political stance, of dangerous political stance, stronger. That's why we need Christians to enter politics and to accompany people through their fears, build with them tomorrow's reality, firmly choosing openness, hope, and trust. How could I conclude? We are merely getting started. I would like to tell you that it is just to consider the ecological issue as a vital threat. It's what the science tells us, and many of you know in your local context, in your churches, that people are suffering and dying today because of this ecological crisis. But I hope that I have managed to provoke a metanoia this morning in this room, showing that at the same time, the ecological challenge is a formidable opportunity. It is the opportunity to renew our framework of thought, to rethink our economies, to rephrase our common goal. It's the opportunity to make our societies thrive, meeting the needs of all within the means of the planet. In the end, liberated by God's grace, it's the opportunity to be in communion with the God of life. There may be no more difficult task ahead of us, but also there is no more beautiful challenge. Merci.
Thank you very much, Martin, for your good presentation and well received by the participants. I believe we have many things to think about, to talk about when we have that opportunity during this plenary and thereafter in our village groups. But now I would like to invite the first response, which will be given by Reverend Monica Valerie, who is a delegate representing the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. She is a steering committee member of the LWF Global Young Reformers. She was ordained in 2011. She serves as a pastor of Salem Lutheran Church in Flint, Michigan, in the United States of America. Reverend Monica, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Martin. We are indebted to you this morning for the wonderful presentation, which calls us to think and to act more deeply on our sub-theme, creation not for sale. You have offered us a wonderful history and theological framework to discern the challenges for our own contexts and to dialogue as a communion, to find where our common ground is and what our call to action might be. I especially liked that your presentation offered a critical view of the free market economic system, which in many of our contexts is really not free. The capitalist market economy rewards and perpetuates economic profit over and against the welfare of people and creation. For many communities, our current economic system and creation is a commodity. Members of the global North especially need to hear the stories of how our economic and political policies are impacting the livelihood of churches and people in the global South. The reality is, capitalism only works when there is income inequality. It is not good enough that the global capitalist economy has helped move people from absolute poverty to experiencing a little less poverty. Jesus came so that we might have life and have life abundantly. As Martin said, taking care of creation is, at the heart, a matter of justice and peace, of protecting the most vulnerable people, the poor, women, children, youth, and the indigenous communities who indeed suffer more from the degradation of creation, while they have least contributed to it. Only together can we begin to name the depth of the many injustices that occur when creation is viewed as a commodity to be sold for profit. The second point that I wish to connect and highlight is what Martin called the commit in politics, or political advocacy. With growing nationalism and populist ideology, increased political tensions and fear throughout the world challenge the economic, social being of humanity. The Church and Public Space study document calls the LWF and its member churches into deeper public engagement and to be a transformative agent in the world. We cannot consider our sub-theme, creation not for sale, without also taking into account that salvation and human beings are not for sale, because God's creation is all-inclusive. For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. For in the one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, and we were all made to drink of one Spirit. When Martin Luther was asked what he would do if the world were to end tomorrow, he reportedly said, "I would plant a tree." With that image of hope, we are called into action. The ELCA, where I serve, is committed to the care of creation, and I have experienced the Lutheran witness of love and service to the neighbor when my beloved city, Flint, Michigan, the place where I was born and have lived most of my life, and now where I serve as pastor, our city experienced one of the largest human-made disasters in our nation's history. The massive divestment of the automotive industry in the 1980s reduced Flint's population to nearly in half. The economy, as it became more global and cheaper labor, and I'll say often exploitative labor, was found in other places. Most of our factory jobs left, and in 2016, nearly 23% of homes in Flint were abandoned. We have high unemployment, low educational attainment, and nearly 42% of our people live below poverty. And yet Flint residents pay the highest water rate in the nation. And our city is 57% African American. Because the city of Flint was in severe financial distress, the state governor was empowered by law to appoint an emergency financial manager to fix our city's financial problems. And as a result, our locally elected government no longer had power. Democracy was replaced with dictatorship. And in 2014, the appointed manager changed our city's water supply to a river that was polluted by decades of industrial waste in order to save money. The federal and state governments failed to guide our city into how to treat the water properly, and the result was a disaster. All of the water pipelines in the city began to corrode. Residents complained of smelly, brown and yellow water, and people were having health issues. But the government continually said that the water was safe to drink. After protesting the government for 18 months, the people of Flint learned that the water was contaminated, and all of us, nearly 100,000 people, were exposed to toxic amounts of the lead metal, which is very harmful to infants, children, and people with immune-compromised systems. The exposure to lead affects brain development and can cause emotional and behavioral problems. And in addition, 12 people died of Legionnaire's disease related to the contaminated water. These austerity policies, combined with disregard for the poor and vulnerable, are experienced as favoring economic profit over the well-being of people and the environment. Clearly, the social and economic injustice that happened in Flint is an example of environmental racism. The city of Flint has been without safe, clean, and affordable drinking water for over 3 years. And our water is still not safe today. It will be at least another 3 years before our water pipelines that were destroyed can be replaced. And until then, we are dependent upon water filtration and bottled water. And through the generosity and solidarity of Lutherans and Christians and people of all faiths, my congregation has provided nearly 4 million pounds, 1.8 million kilograms of bottled water for Flint residents. We continue to organize people to resist the economic and political policies that made the city of Flint so vulnerable and the people so disregarded. And lastly, we work with our government to right the harm that has occurred and to advocate for the needs of the people while working for justice. There are issues with privatization and dependency on bottled water. There are concerns over petroleum pipelines, contaminated rivers, lakes, and streams from industry or agricultural production, global warming, climate change, and drought, which affect billions of people globally. And here in Namibia, water is scarce. Access to clean, safe, affordable water has significant effects for public health, sustainable development, and human rights. Water is life. As caretakers of God's many blessings and as people who have been washed clean by the waters of holy baptism, may the word of God empower all churches to advocate for clean, safe, affordable drinking water for all people. That together as a communion of Lutheran churches, we can bear one another's sufferings as our one common humanity, respect our connection as part of God's creation, and work towards a more just and liberated world where creation is not for sale, human beings not for sale, and salvation is not for sale. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend Monica, for your response. And now I will invite our second respondent, and he is Bishop Jack Urame. He is the head bishop of the Evangelical Lutheran Church of Papua New Guinea. He has worked as an ecumenical co-worker in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Bavaria, Germany, and for more than 10 years, he has worked as a social researcher at the Ecumenical Research Institute in Papua New yine. Bishop, the floor is yours.
Thank you for this honor and also the privilege and opportunity to give response to the main presentation this morning. Firstly, let me acknowledge and thank Martin Kopp on this very sensitive topic that touches the basis of our survival. The address is very important in this gathering of our Lutheran communion as we reflect on an enormous challenge facing us in this 21st century. We are reminded of the ecological disorder that threatens our livelihood and existence on this planet. And I am sure there is sufficient scientific research, conferences, meetings, and discussions on the global level, as well as local level, on the danger we are facing as a result of the disturbance caused to our planetary system. Taking the agenda on creation at this level of our assembly indicates our collective concern for the care and protection of God's creation. For we believe and profess that God created the entire universe with all its beauties. Our existence depends on the cohesion of the ecological order. Every piece of creation was good in the beginning. The history of human progress also informs us that before the advancement of high technology and monetary economic system, our forefathers and mothers were deeply connected with the natural environment. The land and all its contents provided them with the necessities of survival: food, water, oxygen, and shelter. The world was their home. It was everything for them. The world is our home today, where we live. So it must be a safe space to live. Today, the discussion on the topic is renewed as we are preparing for the historic 500 years of Reformation celebration, taking creation not for sale as one of our sub-themes. We are from different continents of the world, here sitting together, listening, challenge today in an ever-increasingly changing world. I come from Oceania, situated in the southern hemisphere. I live in an island country in the Pacific. Countries in the Pacific fall in the third category described in the presentation by Martin this morning. Many of our people are living below the social foundation, and the need to increase our ecological footprint is great, but our potential is limited, and we are suffering at the cost of countries whose ecological footprints are already overshooting the ceiling. This is unfair and totally unfair. Some of the Pacific atolls, smaller islands, are submerged, and shorelines are eaten away by the rising of the sea level. Weather patterns are changing at unpredictable times, and natural disasters are happening at an increasing rate. Man continues to increase the climate disorder, but we humans are powerless against natural disasters. In PNG, where I come from, much of our resources have been ripped off by huge global companies. Copper and gold are extracted. Currently, an overseas multi-billion company, ExxonMobil, maybe you are aware of this company, has extracted liquefied natural gas, cleared trees and built huge airfield in the middle of a rainforest to fly their machines and workers in and out. There is also excessive uncontrolled logging, which results in deforestation and destruction of natural habitat. Drinking water has been polluted through mining. Large companies are doing massive logging and fishing using high technology. Just recently, our government has proposed for a huge deep-sea mining, which will destroy our sea and marine life. If it happens, this will be the first in the world. that church leaders of different churches in Papua New Guinea, including the Evangelical Lutheran Church of Papua New Guinea, already have reacted against the proposal and are still talking as we are speaking today. I believe you also have your story of the ecological challenges you are facing in your own local context. So we are all facing a common threat. If the so-called developed countries continue to increase their footprints, to continue raise the social foundation, the developing countries whose footprints are below the ecological threshold and whose people are still living below the social foundation will continue to suffer. We have been informed today that humans have transgressed both the ceiling and the foundation. So there is ecological imbalance as well as economic inequality. So how can the balance between the two extremes be maintained to avoid ecological degradation and economic deprivation? We admit that creation is disturbed by man in the name of money, material, and development, not only in the quest for improvement of livelihood, but also to accumulate more and more and more. Money, material, and development are good, but they are not the goal of life. Consumerism is not the means to satisfaction of life. Economic progress is good, but not the answer to human quest for freedom, peace, justice, and harmony in the world. Albert Einstein, I quote again, Martin quoted this once, "When the last tree on earth is gone, when the last fish in the ocean is gone, when the last drop of fresh water is gone, you cannot eat money." We are all living on the same planet. We must be responsible to each other. We agree that the current conventional model or economic model is not the best because it is more about wealth creation than well-being, as we are told this morning. Therefore, it is unhelpful and destructive. If the DOUGHNUT model, as we are told this morning, should be the alternative, let us act now by changing our views on the basic values of sharing, caring, and loving each other, by being proactive in our campaign for ecological justice and political engagement at higher levels in order to defeat greed, self-indulgence, excessive consumerism, capitalism, and materialism. The demand for the care of creation began in the beginning when God placed man as responsible custodian of his creation. So let us translate our collective concern by being responsible custodians or stewards and act to minimize or even to prevent destruction. After the assembly, I hope, we will go back home with small commitments for action for ecological justice and climate justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bishop Jack, for your nice presentation. And now the assembly, the moment has come for all of us to engage with the panelists and also with the theme of our day, creation not for sale. Martin, in his presentation, grouped the countries that we represent in 3 groups on levels of what has happened to creation and what possibly we can do at our different levels. So this is a unique opportunity for all of us to express, to share, to listen to one another. Reverend Monica, in her presentation, said even in the US, people do not have clean and safe water. So none of us can try to point fingers. We are all in together in this, and we are in to offer our perspective and to offer our possible solution. So I invite you now to go to the microphones so that you can voice your question, your comment, or your contribution in this theme. Each speaker will have 3 minutes, and we will take the first people who will be at the microphone because we have limited time. As we know, we only have up to 20-25 minutes to engage before we go for break. So, microphone number 2.
Madam Chairperson, we are here, we hear beautiful stories, beautiful statements, well-refined statements, which we all appreciate, we enjoy, we clap our hands. The question I want to know is that what next? We live here, we go back, and nothing is done. And all the time I keep on saying, people are intellectually civilized, but practically primitive.
Bishop, can you again introduce yourself and the church you are coming from?
My name is Paul Kofi Finn from Ghana. So I will repeat. People are intellectually civilized, but practically primitive. I would suggest that the, LWF, with all the beautiful things that we have learned from salvation not for sale, creation not for sale, the human being not for sale, if they can put it in a very simple terms so that we can use it in our Bible studies, in our seminars, and also to the press, so that the press and the churches will carry out for the 6 years, this program can be done, and it will help the people. For example, in my church, I was telling people that it takes 10 trees for a human being to live. 10 trees for any human being to live. So what I do is that I tell, when somebody dies in my church, I say, I don't need wreath. Go and plant 10 trees to help the nation. I think we have to be very practical. Otherwise, we will come here and everything will be in the book, and then nothing is heard, and we hear, and we go back, and everything is dead. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bishop, for sharing your experience. We are taking people in the order they came, so it is microphone 2 again, followed by microphone 1.
Roberto Trejo, de la Iglesia Luterana Mexicana, voy a hablar en español. Quiero agradecer al expositor Martín Kopp su presentación. En realidad la sentí muy cortita, me habría gustado que hubiera hablado mucho más, pero tengo algunas preguntas para el expositor y agradezco. Estaba pensando en esto que el expositor plantea cuando habla acerca de una conversión, una metanoia que necesitamos hacer desde nuestra perspectiva interior para modificar la manera como hemos estado tratando el medio ambiente hasta este momento. Pensaba en los sistemas agrícolas que se implementaron en las tierras americanas antes de la llegada de los conquistadores. Eran sistemas agrícolas sustentables que no agotaban la tierra. De lo que yo conozco en México, por ejemplo, los aztecas utilizaban la siembra del maíz, del frijol y de la calabaza. El frijol es una planta que puede fijar el nitrógeno y entonces no agota la tierra y era un sistema exitoso. Esos sistemas no los vemos ya. Vemos simplemente que lo que importa es invertir en investigación y no que la investigación sea mala, pero no vemos que haya un progreso en realidad, porque con las semillas modificadas simplemente vemos que se dan más enfermedades y los sistemas no son buenos. ¿Cuál pensaría el expositor que debería ser en ese sentido la metanoia que se debería producir en estas empresas que se dedican a producir las semillas? ¿Por qué no volver a los sistemas del pasado, que demostraron ser exitosos y que demostraron ser productivos. Y otra pregunta más, ¿cuál sería la opinión del expositor con relación a la implementación de sistemas como invernaderos o sistemas hidropónicos que también han resultado ser sistemas buenos para la producción de alimentos? Gracias.
Thank you. One, and then it will be 4.
My name is Tim Sonnemeyer. I'm from the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Bavaria. I will speak in English. Climate justice advocacy is an urgent topic, and as you said, Martin, climate change is indeed the top challenge for the 21st century. It is much needed to preserve God's creation. And the climate justice work was a big part and an important part of the youth message that was given to this assembly 7 years ago. As a young delegate, I'm very happy that the LWF did a lot of work to this topic until this assembly. Much of the LWF climate change work was combined with the youth desk. For example, it were young women and men below the age of 30 that attended the COP21 in Paris. However, climate change and creation is not a key priority of the youth message this time. You may wonder why. It is not less important, but it is also not a topic that concerns just us as young delegates. This is an issue for everyone. I think we can agree on that. Thanks for dedicating a whole sub-theme and day of program to this topic. There's no way, but we need to work all together on this one. I want to encourage everyone to think about how we tackle climate change as LWF all together, and how that could be reflected in our future agenda for the next 6 years. Maybe that can also be discussed in the village groups. I want to encourage all the member churches to think of climate justice as a cross-cutting category, and I've heard of many good examples. Or to say it as a question to you, Martin, what's your advice? Where do you see chances for the LWF future agenda, and meetings as the COP21, and then we are a global player? Thanks.
Thank you very much. Now, microphone 4 again, please.
My name is Markus Heumann. I'm from the Lutheran Church in Lippe. Thank you for this touching, interesting, and well-researched lecture, especially for highlighting the topics of the youth message this year. I have a question concerning the political advocacy that, as you pointed out, needs to be taken by us. Where do you see this communion's advantages and chances while taking political action as leaders of our church on a bigger political level? Thank you.
Thank you. Number 4, and this will be it for this first round, and we'll give an opportunity for our panelists to respond. Yeah.
Okay. I would like to thank you very much.
Your name and the church.
Indonesia. Right. Thank you for the great presentation for this morning. And I would like to tell that coming from farmer family backgrounds, I'm really interested for any ideas about green things, whether it is actions or programs. As a young person, I've been always actively involved for the youth activity in my church service, and I even encourage more for the young people in my church, even taking action for the Sunday school children to do some kinds of activity for art and craft day to encourage the kids to clean up their house surrounding to take all the rubbish and change it to be something, because I really would like to be a part of educator for them, how to change for the broken piece to be masterpiece as I could do. And we even had a small expo in my church, and all the people, the congregations, they're really proud for the kids that been involved in that kind of activity. And I would like to do more and more for this, to remind the young kids and also the young people, the youths in my church, about the importance of being creative to help themselves to clean and take action for climate justice. And for this case, I even decided to stop working in a big institution, international school, because I used to be as a teacher, and decided to start building for the small institutions which organize for green actions, tutorial center, where people there can learn about academic and also take action for doing creativity to change for the rubbish to be there growing for academic stuff. And here I would like to tell that as a young person, as a delegate here, I'm really willing to keep on work forwards for this thing. So I will be very proud and thankful if one day I'll be coming again to LWF maybe to propose a program, because we would like to do more for this. And please help us to help ourselves and to help other people to do something great and better. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And now I will give the floor to our keynote presenters if they have, for them to give their response.
Thank you. Thank you very much for those 5 questions, which I will not answer each one of them one after the other, but I would rather say that I identify 3 main themes that come out of this. One of them is how do we move to concrete action. The second is the political sphere, the political commitment. What can we do? What can the communion do? What are the chances and difficulties there? And the third one, I would say, is more of a big call to get practical back home. So on the first question, it is actually very difficult, and this is the choice that I've made in my presentation, not to enter practical detail, because the ecological issue is, by its very nature, very much dependent on the local context. The issues that you are facing in Africa, close to the desert, or in a rainforest, like we heard in the third presentation, or in France, in my own country, are very different. And so there is not one single answer to this. Maybe ecology is the time and the chance to learn to think in a plural way again. Not to say there is one big solution that can be implemented everywhere, but actually to put forward different solutions locally. What I see as a chance, as an opportunity for LWF, is that even though locally the issues are different, many countries, many churches share the same kind of issues. There are many churches that are in places where there are drought and so on. And maybe, depending on those issues, there could be a sharing between those very churches, sharing of good practices, of solutions that work. And in the first question that was posed, there were very technical and precise demands. I would not answer those because I'm not a technical professional, but I can say what is very interesting is the idea to say it is not technology by itself or technological progress by itself that will solve the issue today. It is actually a mix between harvesting the good practices that we inherit from our ancestors, from people who have indeed been able to sustain themselves for centuries, thousands of years, and also some good modern inventions. It is this putting together of those 2 elements that can create locally an adapted response. I would not trust technology, and I would even say that today apart from the question of the economy, there is a faith in technology. People tell you, well, don't worry, technology will save us and solve all the problems. It is not the case. Technological advancement on material flows and energy are not making progress today, and that's why the ecological footprint keeps going up. So I would call for platforms maybe to share innovative solutions and good practices among churches that face the same challenges, but there is not one single good solution. When it comes to climate change and linked to the political sphere and advocacy, I would say COP21 gave us the Paris Agreement, which is a framework in which each and every country will implement its action. I would say that advocacy needs to keep going on there, but there is a big shift towards national level advocacy. Because now the question is not anymore what will be our global agenda or global accord be. The question is how will each and every country implement the Paris Accord in its own context. And so that's why I emphasized the importance of the church level advocacy towards national governments. They have to put into practice their nationally determined contribution. They have to keep their word and to actually do even more. You might know that following the Paris Agreement, we are still on a 3 degrees Celsius trajectory. We were 4 before, so we came down 1 degree, which is good, but it's way not enough. We still need to lower this trajectory, so we need to do better. We are practically primitive, intellectually civilized. My goal will be reached if you go home not with a list of solutions, but with the will to do. Because solutions can be found. The will is the most difficult to get. So if you come out of the assembly saying, going back home saying, we have to do something as a church, what have we been doing? How can we do better? How can we commit more? This is the main and the most important fruit. And then, and this is a call, and another call I make partnerships with the civil or the secular civil society. This is something we've seen at COP21, is that we can actually be partners on this issue, and it is a great place to be collaborating together with experts, which are not church experts, but who have worked on these practical issues. We have done so in France, we can do so in other countries as well. And lastly, and I stop here, the question about climate change, the LWF, where it can go. Between the lines, my presentation this morning was trying to say it is important that we have been so strong on climate change, and we should keep being strong and getting more active at the practical level. But do not forget that there are 8 other ecological issues, among which biodiversity loss, which up to now we have maybe addressed a bit less. But biodiversity loss is one of the 2 systemic boundaries. So can we strengthen our climate action and at the same time maybe diversify and get committed? You know, there are COPs about that biodiversity, not only COPs about climate change. Can we maybe expand and follow those different issues to have the big picture? So this would be one
Reverend Monica.
I just want to thank Martin again for his wonderful presentation and for the gift and fruit that you just offered us in response to those questions raised. And thank you to all who have shared stories and who asked questions. I will speak to the point of political advocacy, particularly with what Martin said, that we are focused on the national level. That slide that Martin showed that said political dangers, walls, scapegoats, nation first. This is a very big challenge for us, the ELCA, in the United States of America. I think the whole world knows that. That slide was of Donald Trump. The election of Donald Trump shocked the world, and I assure you it shocked 65 million plus Americans. I see the call to advocacy as incredibly challenging in the United States context now, more so. but also perhaps one of our greatest needs. And I wish to say that our work in the ELCA needs this global communion now more than ever on these political advocacy efforts. We need your prayers. We need your support. I know that we are working all the time for justice and peace as a church and as people of faith for our country and around the world.
And Bishop Jack.
Thank you. I sometimes wonder, issues like this, that is capturing the attention of the global community are discussed at top level, like this conference and, meetings and so on. But how much of this is, brought down to the bottom level, where the problems are, where the people are? I think I want to make the link between the first comment that was made and the last one. The question of, what can we do to translate this message down, to the bottom? And the work of the small children that I think the last comment we heard is amazing, and I am very impressed and pleased. Because if the technologies and also the modern economic models are human invention, a part of our human culture, how can we change the mindset, to influence behavior, change of behavior? If we could have programs at the bottom level to at least build up our little children to grow up with a different kind of mindset, that would be a change of maybe direction in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will take the second round of your comments. We have 7 people at the microphones. And according to the time that we have, if all of the ones who start use your full 3 minutes, all 7 people might not be able to say what they want to say. So I ask you to be precise and brief, and please remember to introduce yourself. Microphone number 3.
Thank you. My name is Helen from the Ethiopian Evangelical Church, Mekane Jesus. For those of us coming from the third world, which is my context, we are from the selling end. We sell our lands for the rich investors to attract foreign direct investment. We need foreign direct investment to buy our basics, medicine, hospital equipment, and to finance all our imports. We are part of the injustice for creation, but for survival. We are vulnerable at times. We are cheated if those investors leave our land polluted, leave our people exploited, and leave our environments degraded. It looks like that things are not on our hand, but on the hands of those who grabbed our land. We call upon, therefore, for responsible stewardship. We do have policies. We do have protective policies, but they are overruled. Money is ruling. Who listens to the poor anyway? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Microphone number 1.
My name is Arne Jutek. I'm from the Evangelical Lutheran Church in northern Germany, and I would like to speak in German. Vielen Dank für Ihren Vortrag. Ich würde gerne auf die Frage nach der Verantwortung eingehen und nach der Frage der Selbstkritik, also wie selbstkritisch wir mit uns umgehen sollen, und würde gern als Beispiel die LWB-Hauptversammlung nehmen. Mir sind dort einige Dinge aufgefallen, die ich gerne mit Ihnen teilen würde. Ich persönlich esse gerne Fleisch und auch Donuts übrigens, aber die Frage, müssen wir wirklich 3-mal am Tag so viel Fleisch essen? Müssen wir jeden Tag unsere Handtücher wechseln? Besteht nicht die Möglichkeit, regionale und faire Produkte zu nehmen bei den Mahlzeiten? Müssen wir wirklich so viele Dinge haben, die importiert werden, hauptsächlich aus Südafrika? Einfach sich die Frage zu stellen, inwiefern man auch selbstkritisch in Bezug auf den Umweltschutz und auf den Klimaschutz beim LWB sein kann und auch mal den Mikrokosmos des Safari-Hotels zu verlassen. Wir haben in unserer Bibelarbeitsgruppe darüber gesprochen oder uns gewünscht, dass es sehr schön wäre, wenn die Natur sich mal zu Wort melden würde, wenn sie mal schreien würde. Ich bin mir aber ziemlich sicher, dass wir schon erkennen können, dass sich die Natur zu Wort meldet und sich bemerkbar macht. Wir müssen aber einfach diese Zeichen nur mal erkennen. Und das geht nur, wenn wir unseren Mikrokosmos auch mal verlassen und überlegen, was um uns herum passiert. Hier im Hotel sind wir in einem angenehmen Umfeld und es ist alles sehr komfortabel, aber bei ein paar hundert Meter weiter haben wir ganz andere, einfache Strukturen. Und ich nehme mich da selbst nicht aus, aber wir müssen einfach versuchen, auch mal out of the box zu denken, also auch mal die Perspektive zu wechseln. Vielen Dank.
Thank you. Now microphone number 5, and will be followed also by microphone number 5.
I'm Desri Sumbayak from the Indonesian Christian Church, Indonesia. I would like to raise the case in Indonesia that we have a very famous brand, mineral water. Then the name of the brand is Aqua. And now that company belongs to French company. DOUGHNUT is a very big French company. The source of the water is in the mountainous area, 2 kilometers from the capital city of North Sumatra. They produce millions of gallons of water every day, and they sell million gallons of water every day to all over Indonesia. Can you imagine how much money they earn from the water we have? However, during the rainy seasons, we experience landsliding happen around that area where the company is established. And that affects the people, the social life of the people who live around the source of the water. I strongly agree with your argument. I strongly agree with your idea that advocacy is very important. But my argument is that the advocacy should not only be done in our country where the source of the water, where the nature is exploited, but the advocacy should be also given to the country where the money from, where the capital is from, because our water is not for sale. Thank you.
Thank you. Mic number 5, followed by microphone number 3.
Thank you. My name is Jonas Yigazode Bisa from the Ethiopian Evangelical Church Mekane Yesus. Part of my question has been taken by others, and enough response has been given also. Coming from Africa, I do see some tensions. Some of us, some countries like Ethiopia, are aspiring so much for economic growth. And our economic growth strategy takes so much after the developed world. The tension is then between the aspiration for economic growth and also the willingness to care for the nature. The issue is, how can that happen when we are aspiring for economic growth, but which cannot happen without exploiting what the nature provides? And what kind of education can the communion, this communion or the LWF church members develop in terms of Christian education and also in terms of theological reflection? Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone number 3.
Thank you very much. I'm Jensi Mojuin from the Protestant church in Sabah, Malaysia. Now we're talking about creation not for sale. For me, it's meaning free. Everything free. If free, and now we are in Windhoek, not everything free. So, can we draw a clear line to indicate that which one can be sold and which one not for sale? Or can we stop now those people involved selling creation that created by God? Or any solution concrete from LWF to stop us? Maybe we also involved in selling creation that created by God. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Microphone number 2.
Evangelical Church in Württemberg, and I would like to ask my question in German. Vielen Dank, Herr Kopp, für Ihren Vortrag. Sie haben ein sehr komplexes Thema sehr anschaulich dargestellt und Sie haben auch uns vor Augen geführt, wie vielfältig die Aufgaben sind und wie vielfältig auch die Möglichkeiten sind, sich zu engagieren. Sie haben auch einen Witz gemacht über Theologen und Mathematik. Meine Freundin studiert Mathematik und ich studiere Theologie, deswegen spüre ich in meinem Alltag oft sehr genau, für was ich Experte bin und für was nicht. Daher meine Frage, wo sehen Sie die Aufgabe der Kirche in dieser Sache? Und denken Sie, es gibt einen Beitrag zu diesem DOUGHNUT, von dem Sie gesprochen haben, den tatsächlich nur wir leisten können und niemand anderes? Und eng damit verbunden auch die Frage, denken Sie, wir als Kirche sollten uns aus gewissen Fragestellungen raushalten, weil uns schlichtweg der Sachverstand fehlt und andere Organisationen, Greenpeace etc., in diesen Sachen besser sind und sich eher einsetzen können? Vielen Dank.
Thank you very much. Our two last speakers, microphone number 2, followed by microphone number 1.
Thank you very much. My name is Daniel Jensen Siankulo, and I come from the Lutheran Church in Liberia. I want to say thanks to Martin. Martin, thanks for your presentation. It's a beautiful one, and it exposes a lot of things to some of us that have very little knowledge of what is going on around us. Martin Luther stood against abuse in the church, bringing about what we now celebrate today as the Reformation. We see in your presentation the same kind of things that Martin stood against. He stood against those things in the church because they happen in the church, and these are things that are happening in the society that we are a part of. Just as Martin stood against those abuses, I think it is time for us, the church, to stand against the destruction, the experiences that devastate our societies and our communities. Because our political approach has failed us, in my opinion, it is time for us as a church to stand up and do something. Martin, while we ask our young people to take political stand or take advantage of the political opportunities presented them, I think, and also to take advantage of the DOUGHNUT system that you just introduced to me, I think it is time for us to encourage them to organize with us so that we take a stand against the political or social systems that cause us to experience these devastations. That's my opinion. And I ask you, Martin, what will you say against or for what I have said? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Microphone number 1.
Uta Hirschler from the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Brunswick, and I speak in German. Herzlichen Dank für den Gedanken, dass wir mit der Bekehrung und einem spirituellen Impuls beginnen. Ich kann gut zustimmen, dass wir alle mehr tun müssen und kann auch zustimmen, dem Impuls zuerst bei uns anzufangen und uns politisch zu engagieren. In den letzten Tagen haben wir immer wieder den Gedanken darauf gehabt, dass das Wirtschaftssystem eigentlich verändert werden müsste. Und deswegen würde ich mir wünschen, dass wir die Gemeinschaft der Kirchen im Lutherischen Weltbund dazu nutzen, uns gemeinsam auf eine Strategie zum wirtschaftlichen Handeln auch zu verständigen und dort einen Impuls zu geben und nicht immer nur bei dem Handeln vor Ort und dem politischen Engagement uns darauf beschränken. Denn letztlich bringt uns das dazu, dass wir immer versuchen, selbst die Welt zu retten. Und das widerspricht eigentlich genau dem Gedanken, dass wir von Gott befreit sind durch Gottes Gnade. Danke.
Thank you very much. And I will give the floor to our panelists to give their response, starting with Martin.
Thank you very much for these rich questions. I just want to ask how much time do we have left? Because there were 8 questions, very big issues, so how short shall...
5 minutes to see how you can use those 3 minutes so that we give other responses also opportunity if they have some.
3 minutes. It's learning to degrow already, you know, in speech. Well, the question about the our own responsibility and what we do as LWF is the one that we have to have in mind all of the time. And this is what we can bring as churches in difference maybe to other kind of NGOs, secular NGOs, is that we have a certain kind of intelligence of what it means to convert. It's not something that happens from one day to another. You step at a time, and it's the only way we can do. The example of meat consumption is a very good one, because there are many issues which are systemic that you cannot change. If you live in a small village, for instance, in France, you need to take a car. But what you have in your plate depends only on you. My teacher said, you know, Martin, you vote once a year, but you eat 3 times a day. And that is very right. And the meat industry in the world produces more greenhouse gases taken together. So this is a place where you have the freedom to do it all by yourself, and which has a very concrete impact. So it's a very good example, and I support this. The question of the advocacy, not only in our country, but also in another country. I very much agree with what you said, and maybe we as French churches could try to do something regarding this issue and maybe trying to speak to Danone. I know that some churches, but maybe churches that have more political weight, have been discussing directly with CEOs, top business owners, etc., doing advocacy not only to political actors, but also directly to economic actors. I know the church in Germany, the EKD, has been doing this because they have access. If you do have access to these business leaders, go to them, advocate, speak about the DOUGHNUT model, and try to have a voice in this sphere as well. There is this question, where lies the power today? In the economic world, in the political world? So maybe we need to address both indeed. It might be as well the strength of the LWF communion to be such a big and powerful actor to go and speak toward businesses. I don't know if we have been doing that before, but why not engaging big companies that have a role in this or that country, because in the life of this or that member church, going to the company and doing advocacy with the weight of the global communion in the name also of the member church. This is a very good idea, and I thank you for that. What can we do as churches and that other NGOs cannot do? I would not divide completely and saying churches do one thing and other NGOs do another. I would say that we each have our strengths and our own angle, but we can learn from each other and help each other. My experience in France around COP21 is that churches helped secular NGOs speak more about the question of the representation of the world, the values we share that we put forward, that are the first step if you want a technical change. And that was a very fruitful discussion, and I have spoken more about that. And the other way around, it is a true challenge for us to put our theology, which is important, but into practical political words. When you go and advocate at COP21, you need to say in this paragraph, that line, that word is not good because. And here, secular NGOs have maybe in dialogue with secular NGOs, and it has helped translate our faith into very precise political wording. So we have each our angle, but we help each other. I'm almost done out of time, huh? Just about the question, the tension between the will for economic growth and the preservation of nature. The example came from Africa, but it's the same in other so-called developing countries. I would say, take from the DOUGHNUT model the idea that there are countries that are entitled to more growth, to more consumption, but don't let yourself go into the model that endless economic growth is the goal by itself and that your economy should be growing forever. It is actually growing until you reach the way of life that can give dignity to all the people of your country. But do not enter into that virtuous circle in which actually it's always more, always more, always more. This is losing the goal. It is putting the means as the end itself. So this is maybe the takeaway of the presentation, but also I would challenge the very idea of development. Development is saying that each and every country, each and every community has to go the same path around the world. And this is taking the plurality and the richness of our cultures back to one single narrow route that we are all supposed to take. I'm sure in all of your cultures, you have ways of saying the good life, like the buen vivir in Spanish, sumak kausai in another language, I do not remember which one it is. So having your own definition of the good life. And maybe you noticed, the donut economy speaks of the safe and just space, not of the happy space. Because happiness can be defined locally depending on your culture, depending on your context. It's not something to be universal and brought in each and every country. You have the freedom to discuss that among your communities and then to put the economy at its right place, which is the second one of a means and not the first one of an end. Maybe the ecological crisis is the last great opportunity for us to redefine what progress really means, because saying that progress is only economic growth, technological advancement is a narrowing that we cannot accept. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin and Reverend Monica.
Thank you, Martin. I feel that I don't need to add much to what you have shared. In my context, and indeed I know in others, I think one of the great challenges is this idea of a divide between the religion and science. This is a conversation that we're having in the United States and a dialogue that needs to continue because, as you pointed out, Martin, there really is no division in those and that each contribute to the whole. And along with the political advocacy, I wholeheartedly agree in that need for dialogue and conversation and indeed communion with each other as a global community and society, that it is both on the political as well as the social and in business and economy that we need to be a voice. This is a growing edge for our church in the ELCA and how we influence policy. And like many of you, we can't keep up with all of the tweets and the ideas that our current political system are saying. And we need your help in that, and we need your help in drafting and creating strategies for how we can advocate for a more just and peaceful world. And that has been one of my greatest joys as being part of the LWF communion, is sharing in those stories. Again, as I shared, the global north needs to hear the stories of how our economics and politics affect the communities of the global south. That is, I think, part of the beauty of what we have together, and it is out of that that we will be that prophetic voice of change in the world.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Finally, Bishop Jack.
Thank you. We are now putting a theological lens to understand our world, and we see God and us connected to God's creation. But there is an alternative too, where someone mentioned about mathematics. We can also see the world with a mathematical lens. And this is the problem. Everything now seems to have price tags on them. There was one example given by, I think, someone who raised a question on a bottle of water. Everything have price tags on them. And this is our concern now, because now we put a different lens to raise our concern that something is not right in this world. The modern economic model is like an empire today in our world, robbing us of our values, of our cultures, of our tradition, and of our human connectedness with each other, and also our human connectedness with nature. In my context, we live in relationship with nature, the mountain, the sea, the trees, rivers, they are part of us. We are part of them. If we disturb them, we will suffer. And this is what is happening in the world today. Creation is robbed of its beauty in the name of this new empire. We hope as Christians, we hope and pray that one day the face and the outlook of this empire will change with a new vision and a new face. And that is the time when we will seek justice in its fullness. Creation is not for sale. Thank you.
Please join once more thanking our panelists, Martin, Reverend Monica, and Bishop Jack, who have given us a lot to think about, but who have also given us a lot to engage with on our sub-theme. Thank you very much to our panelists. I also want to thank you, Assembly participants, for your engagement. 13 people have asked for floor, and this just shows that we really want to engage on our sub-theme. Creation is not for sale. And your engagement in this plenary has given you the momentum and all of us to continue the conversation in our village groups. So thank you very much, Assembly. My final thanks to the President. Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
And I give back the chair to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sister Lerose Mbisi, for moderating this session, which again, it was very inspiring, and it will give us good food for the road, for the journey. Thank you very much for all of you, and for Sister Lerose